This is the Tree of Life, Season 14, Chapter 1. In this episode, we will be talking about the construction of larger structures and introducing a method of analyzing them akin to the mathematical discipline of combinatorics. To start out, in past episodes, beginning with our introduction of hybrid structures in a much earlier episode, we talked about a way of visualizing hybrid structures. In this episode, I would like to elaborate that visualization method and introduce a way of analyzing these structures. If you imagine that we are talking about a trigonal structure, where person A is at the top, person B is on the bottom left and person C is on the bottom right. And you imagine that person A can affirm impulse 1 or the dialectical impulse, impulse 2 for either B or C. Then you can see that there are four possibilities to the structure. For the first arrangement, impulse 1 is affirmed for person B, and impulse 2 negated. For person C, impulse 1 is affirmed and impulse 2 negated. In this case, there is the creation of an in-group, because both persons B and C identify by impulse 1. The contrary arrangement, where impulse 2 substitutes for impulse 1, there is also the creation of an in-group according to impulse 2. Finally, there are two chiral arrangements, which are hybrid structures. These involve impulse 1 being affirmed for person B, and impulse 2 negated. Whilst for person C, impulse 2 is affirmed and impulse 1 negated. The final version involves the reverse of these two arrangements. Now, the final two versions represent binary hybrid structures, because they entail preferential expectation matching as between persons A and persons B and C. That is, they produce specialization by impulse. The first two arrangements are homogeneous and generate creation of an in-group and an out-group. Now, what if we add two more individuals to this structure? In this case, we see that the arrangements become sixfold. In that, the first two involve preferential expectation matching and are hybrid, producing two pairs of specialized individuals by impulse. The next two produce the creation of homogeneous in-groups and out-groups. The final two produce three members of the in-group and one out-group member in two varieties. Now, what if we recognize that the central person, person A, is also subject to affirmation or negation from persons B, C, or D? In this case, we draw a new axis from person A out to another person E, with a second axis crossing at person E. In this case, we can understand that persons B, C, and D are represented in both structures side by side. Now, all of this assumes that person A remains the central activating individual. In that, person A is between persons B, C, and D. In other words, you must imagine this structure as being a cross, or an X with person A at the center. From this we begin to see that you can conceptualize in groups and out groups by arrangements of impulses by affirmation or negation within a structure, such as a trigonal structure, or a cross, or X structure. More importantly, we see that some degree of combinatorics must be used to analyze the resulting structures for potential arrangements, which might produce hybrid structures, that is, preferential expectation matching, i.e. specialization, or homogeneous in-groups, or divided in groups. Thus, it becomes possible to see that conceptualizing structures in this fashion, and use of a geometric representation of dialectical impulses to be affirmed or negated, is fruitful in analyzing preferential expectation matching, specialization, and creation of in-groups and out-groups. That's the end of the podcast for today.